Yo guys, what is up? It's Jacob here again. Since the new Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild trailer came out last week, I thought it would be a good idea to share my thoughts, my ideas, my expectations, and my wants for the new Legend of Zelda game with all of you guys. As you know, I'm a huge Zelda fan, by far my favorite Nintendo series, and I am so stoked for this game. So, let's get rolling with this. Biggest thing to mention, by far, is the absolute vastness of this new game. It is not a surprise that this game is absolutely massive, right? Nintendo showed that a long time ago. You know, they showed that little part of the map, said this is only 1% of the map. See that mountain over there? You can go there. Everybody knows that this game is going to be absolutely huge. Obviously, we have no idea how necessarily large it's going to be. You know, there's a lot of theories it's going to be bigger than Skyrim, and that's very likely. You know, there's been a lot of hints and rumors that there's going to be like landscapes that are similar, you know, that draw from, you know, previous games. You know, the big skull thing, you know, that's from the original Zelda game. So, my thoughts on this large map, you know, obviously everybody, you know, this game is going to be more of a, you know, free roaming game from what they, you know, make it out to be. You know, you can kind of go wherever you want. Now, my opinion on that is, I think that's a great idea. However, as everybody knows, prior Zelda games have always been kind of on like a rail system. You know, you have to go here, then you have to go here, then you have to go here, and it happens to just be in a really big, you know, world kind of. You know, you have this big Hyrule field, but there's not really a lot to do in it. It's more of just a mode of transportation to get from point A to point B. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case with this game. I think that Hyrule Field is going to be what we've always wanted it to be. Going to be what we thought Twilight Princess was going to be. I think we're going to spend most of our time, if not at least like half of our time, in Hyrule Field. I think it's going to be a lot like that, where when you look at games like Skyrim and you look at games like Fallout 4, so I think that's going to be a huge, huge part of the game. I think Nintendo has to be a little careful because, you know, there's a balance between how much you can let the person go and do. Obviously, it's going to be a Zelda game. There's going to be cool items. There's going to be items that you get at specific points in the game. As with every single other Zelda game, there's certain roadblocks that are set so that you can't go past another point. And I think Nintendo has to be pretty careful with that, because if they make the game too free roaming where you can go wherever you want from the start of the game, I think people are going to get a little upset about it, because they're going to go somewhere and they're going to find something cool and they're not going to be able to do it yet because they don't have the means of doing it yet. And with a lot of other games, it's not a big deal, you know, like, oh, sometimes you can't get into a room until you have master locksmithing. But as we all know with Zelda games, you know, there's dungeons. You know, typically the dungeons follow part of the story with the games, you know. I don't necessarily know how much Breath of the Wild is going to follow that same archetype with having to go from dungeon to dungeon to dungeon. I think that it's definitely going to draw more from the original Legend of Zelda. My opinion, I think what they're going to do is they're going to have these big dungeons. So huge dungeons, just like any other Zelda game. You're going to have your big main dungeons. That's where the story happens. That's where you get the big items. Except I think what they're going to do is it's going to be a lot like, you know, Skyrim and Fallout, where you're going to have these delves, right? You have little mini caves where you go in, you might get an item, you know, something, if, you know, I don't know. Obviously, we don't know what kind of items and stuff they're going to have in Breath of the Wild. But, you know, like little tiny mini challenges that you can do. You know, there might be a little mini boss or something in there that you have to fight. So I think Nintendo's going to try to employ that maybe. So, I mean, with that, I just kind of think that the game is going to follow like a general guideline. They do have their work cut out for them in finding a way to integrate the Legend of Zelda into this big open sandbox type world. You know, this huge RPG world where you can do what you want, because obviously if they want it to stay the kind of same vibe as a Legend of Zelda game, they do need to still keep it on that guideline a little bit. The game feels familiar, but different at the same time. Now, I think this game is definitely going to have a huge impact on more on the different side, as it's nothing like anything before. After watching the newest trailer, I think we all can really see just how much story there's going to be to this game. And so I think that the story is going to tie in a lot with the map. You need the places on the map to have a significance when you go there. You don't want to just have this huge, open, vast map, while every single place on the map doesn't really mean anything to you. You know, when you have a lake, you put the Zoras there. You know, you put a Zora there, and you have some sort of connection to them. You have the water temple. You have to save the Zoras. Something along those lines where we can get a connection to the places on the map. That's probably going to be one of the harder things to do. The Zelda games, you need to care. If you want to make it a true RPG style game where, you step into the hero's shoes, you need to care about the people that you're saving. Nintendo, they have to do a good job at, making there be a meaning to the locations in the map. If they introduce stuff like that, little side quests. You go find a Goron on the side of a mountain, he's like, oh, I need your help with this boulder. It's blocking the road to my home. Something along those lines where we can make associations with the people and the places, because we need to remember certain areas, we need to remember the people, and we need to make those connections that we're used to kind of in a Zelda game. So I think that it's really important that Nintendo really dedicates themselves to making this map how it really should be. I think that it needs to mean something, because it shouldn't just be a vessel for getting from place to place. It needs to be a place, it needs to be equally explorable as any other part of the game. Even more, it should be the most explorable part of the game. That's where a majority of the game should take place, is in whatever open map that we're in. Definitely by far the most important thing in this is going to be the story. We saw in the trailer that this game is very, very, very story driven. If you look at the previous Zelda games, there's a trend, right? When you start in the first Legend of Zelda game, there's hardly even full sentences, and you don't even say anything back. There's no interaction, really. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this, right? That's basically the limit of what we have in, the first two Zelda games. There's very limited communication, and you're just kind of thrown in, and you just have to figure it out. Once we get to A Link to the Past, well, then we start having cutscenes. We have dialogue cutscenes. There's not really cinematic cutscenes, but there's dialogue. Now, once we get into Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, then we start seeing these cinematic cutscenes. They're kind of far and few between, but they do exist. There's more Majora's Mask than there are in Ocarina of Time. But on top of that, there's a lot more dialogue. There's a lot more conversation, and there's a lot more story. And then once we get to the GameCube with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, we can see more cutscenes. We can see, especially, the most important thing that we can see in these games with the story is there's some sort of character development. In the previous games, there were just the characters, and they were just kind of there. Maybe there was a little bit of development, especially, maybe in Majora's Mask. Definitely in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, we can see a level of character development, and we really start actually caring for the people we're around. Facial expressions that are much more detailed than they are in N64 versions. Once we get into Skyward Sword, that's kind of when the game changed even more. You had long cinematic cutscenes, and so as there's this general trend upwards of story. And that story kind of comes along with advancement of video games themselves and technology themselves, because as we get more advanced, we're able to show more and more story. I think Nintendo has kind of a decision to make about how much story they want to include if they want to keep that trend moving. I think, especially now, we're used to getting more and more story with the Legend of Zelda games, and we want more story. Personally, I want more story. I want as much story as they can comfortably fit in that game. So I think that there definitely is some choices that they have to make, and I think that there's some things that Nintendo could do to kind of make the game feel more immersive, even if they, had the same amount of cutscenes as Skyward Sword, and I think they definitely will have more just looking at that trailer. We saw all these different races, and so I think that there is going to be a whole lot of cinematic cutscenes in there. I think that Nintendo, to make it a little bit more immersive, I think that they could, obviously, we heard voices in the trailer. That's the first time we've ever really heard voices. I think Skyward Sword had sounds, like, kind of like general, expression sounds, but they didn't have any voice acting. But it sounds like we honestly might have voice acting in this game, which I would not be opposed to at all. Skyward Sword introduced the idea of dialogue choice, and I thought that was a good idea. Other, RPG games use it. Look at Mass Effect. Dialogue choice means a whole lot in Mass Effect, and I think Nintendo needs to do that. I think we had dialogue choice in Skyward Sword, really didn't mean anything. So I think in introducing dialogue choice that actually has an impact on your game, I think that would be great. Alright guys, so that was my general thoughts and wants and stuff for the new Legend of Zelda game, Breath of the Wild. Yeah, obviously, not everybody's gonna agree with this type of stuff, but personally, I think that's that's what I want out of this game. Those are the things that I personally want. I'm a longtime Zelda fan, and I would love to see more story. I would love to see more immersion, voice acting, dialogue choices, all of it. The whole 9 yards. The more that they can really give us, the happier that I'll be with it. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.